So for today's discussion, today's podcast, we want to talk about, basically collaborative staff. Really the importance and advantages of collaboration technologies in a global and hybrid teamwork environment. We're all faced with, especially, post-pandemic, more and more folks, it's the hybrid work environment has become, more of the norm. And even before that, obviously, with companies outsourcing, going more global, over the years, it's really, really important to have, good engineering tools to collaborate. So with that, we can just kind of go around and introduce ourselves. Michael?
Hello. It's so nice to be here with you today. So my name is Mike LaFleche. I'm the Director of Pre-Sales Engineering over at Onshape, which is part of PTC. Long-time CAD and PLM player in the industry, and Onshape was brought in to PTC a little while ago, back in 2019. So that's me, and I do lots of things at Onshape. So I'll talk about that later.
So Michael, we had some preliminary discussions, and it did basically, and the full transparency, we are Onshape customers as well. And I thought it was a good idea to, have you join the podcast as we kind of we're starting naturally in the podcast series with kind of the design aspects. So they actually want to feature, where it's really kind of the rubber meets the road, the engineering side of things, and kind of what technologies are in that space, right? So we're able to demonstrate to you kind of how we're using Onshape currently. And using our platform, which, as I mentioned, we're digital procurement platform, collaboration tool that's connecting, the engineering outside of the house with purchasing and the suppliers, and then that's connecting to a global vetted network of suppliers. So we're really trying to basically create this ecosystem to make that whole upfront procurement experience a better experience, really, just for engineering procurement as suppliers, and drive the early engagements. Maybe you could tell us, more about, Onshape and your role at Onshape.
Onshape is, a CAD system, but it's much more than a CAD system. It is one of the only software as a service style CAD and PDM systems. PDM is product data management. And Onshape is positioned in the market as a replacement tool for companies that use things like SolidWorks or similar systems, but it takes care of all your data, right? So you don't have to worry about checking in and checking out files or uploading files to a server or even installing the software, for crying out loud. You don't have to worry about that. It's all taken care of, and it's delivered to you in a web browser, so it runs on almost anything. Right. So there's many benefits, including team collaboration and sharing with suppliers.
Right. And this actually, one of the things that's very interesting is that I mentioned before, as we build out our vetted global vendor base, especially around custom mechanical parts, we've got suppliers doing, custom sheet metal parts, die casting, injection molding, extrusion, etc. And the de facto is typically at the factory level. They have some license of typically SolidWorks. So I definitely could see some opportunity there. Because I don't think the factories they don't need that level of capability necessarily. So I think, there's a good opportunity there I could see for the ones that are really just kind of viewing and then picking that view and designing their tools.
Yeah.
Parts. Like that seems like a really good fit. And that's something I think we'll start discussing further with our suppliers globally.
Yeah, a lot of people will actually buy CAD just so they can import files and view them, right? Because a regular rule viewer program will not convert data typically. It will only open the file type that is made for that type of viewing. So it's like, you really can't do much with it unless you have to have all the viewers and all the things. So it really does make a lot of purchasing kind of people's jobs difficult, and sales engineers and other kind of employees that are involved with supply chain. It really does make it drives a wedge in there. It really does.
like how it's being viewed today, the tools that is being used in engineering and supply chain across the world, the challenges that are faced by the companies and the people who are working it. What are your thoughts about that?
So I think this kind of goes back to the main focus of the discussion is about collaboration tools. And as someone like myself that's managed, procurement teams and being embedded in design firms, design offices, it's really, engineers will design, right? But it takes a while for them to warm up to getting the actual supplier feedback. It's kind of along the same lines of the engineers they'll break out an old spreadsheet from a company that they worked at 10 years ago. They try to estimate, the tool is going to cost $5,000.
Yeah.
It's a dusty old spreadsheet from 10 years ago, and then PCABS is still that much per kg.
Yeah.
Well, it should cost this, right? And so it's really what's really important, I think, is, and with these tools like Onshape and hopefully with SCiMon as well, bringing the collaboration, early supplier involvement, right? Not only to get feedback to the engineers, but to get real feedback on pricing from the suppliers.
Right.
You're able to click on the URL, even with the Onshape viewer, look at that. They'll be able to get, just do a quick analysis of what's happening. Maybe I could do a family tool based on your geometry, save a little money, a little time to market, things like that. So it's really just, we have this great technology, right? It's really about just fostering this system of collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, since CAD was developed back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, going forward, the way manufacturing has changed since then too, right? Everybody was working, you built things in a factory, you everything was under one roof, right? You didn't share things outside. Time went by, 90s, 2000s, this becomes much more popular to have a global supply chain. And you have OEM and, designers working with contract manufacturers now. And that, they're not on the same business systems typically. And that makes it very difficult now to start really working together. And all the CAD systems were built in the past. They were built to support the factory model where everything was the design and engineering and making things were under one roof. And that's not the case anymore. Even your largest manufacturers will work with contract manufacturing, from small to large. The smallest teams, like I think of one of our other customers, Formlabs, who makes 3D printers, right? They're well known. And, they started locally. They started with 3 people in 3 different locations, and that was their company. And then they start, and you need a system like Onshape when you're working across multiple locations with decentralized infrastructure. You're working with suppliers. You want to share data in a way that they know what's going on ahead of time. So engineers are famous for wanting to tear things apart and build things up themselves and just kind of like do things themselves, right? So like you're kind of fighting a little resistance getting help from people, right? With suppliers. You have so anything you can do to make it an easy, fun process to get your supplier involved early to help you. How do you know what your supplier has for tooling on their end, right? Let's just like put our egos down as engineers, talk to your vendor, talk to your supplier, know what kind of tooling they have, share the design into them early and often, and get feedback and find out if it's going to work early or not. And then you're going to save a lot of money because you're going to find problems earlier and it's not going to cause delays later. And that's the whole reason for getting your suppliers involved early, is to avoid that altogether. And Onshape can do that because you're not sending a file that you have to send back 20 times back and forth. You're sending a blast.
And that's exactly, we wanted with our platform, and as we kind of build out with other Onshape customers as well, get in the engineering community, it's these constant pervasive pains that happen between engineering, purchasing, and the suppliers, right? It's really making that collaboration easier. And what does that do, right? So instead of going back and forth, that you're still guesstimating on pricing, right? So that it's making sales happy to know what their pricing actually is versus the dusty old spreadsheet, right? The engineers know, does that supplier have 1,000-ton press, or do they have only 500?
Right.
Maybe I need to select another supplier. Okay, now I know the supplier can build my parts. Can they meet my tolerance, right? The operations, can they meet the volume? So it really kind of this early collaboration, early identification of the capability and the pricing is really, really important. And what does that result in, right? It's really time to market. It's shortening the window. As an early adopter of cloud tech and being in sales, from your perspective, what were some of the, some of the pain points you were trying to solve and some of the kind of early pushbacks, and how did you resolve it?
In the CAD world, companies are really old companies. So like having any kind of new company was a challenge. But I think, when Onshape was first starting, the people's wants about the cloud and storing data and security and privacy was a little different than it is now. I think we've evolved quite a bit in how people see and perceive storing things in the cloud. Our lives are all online nowadays, and the next generation of people coming out of school, right, are just more accepting of this, right? And in fact, people will ask, is Onshape secure? How can I put my crown jewels in your platform, right? And that was always the number one thing that was an issue. And I think people have come around to understanding that digital cloud security with encryption and database on the cloud on Amazon Web Services, where they have armed guards and we test every single backup and we're doing all the things. This is much safer and better than you carrying around flash drives in your pockets, emailing files, putting things on a server, then putting all the blood money and spent into PDM systems that you might install and maintain. Like that was, once people understand that part of it, I think it became much easier to move forward with a system like Onshape. But that was always like the first thing that people would be a little nervous about, right? Rightfully so. You're trusting us, but we have lots of companies that we've gone through all the security reviews, and we're SOC 2 certified, which is the highest level you can get on a SaaS program for things. So for security and process, it's like ISO 9001 for software SaaS companies. So
exactly, and so that's a great point about all the security and the file sharing. So our platform is also AWS, SOC 2, all the
that's great
securities. So I really love the fact that I can take the URL from Onshape and either the engineers themselves or whoever is going to run the quotation can just cut and paste right in the system.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much faster. And it really, it took me all of less than 2 minutes to take the entire product, a mix of the files from Onshape for that project, adding the electronic side of things as well. You're getting it quoted to all the suppliers in play, all secure in cloud. So it's a huge benefit other than downloading and emailing files back and forth.
What does your platform do?
So basically, where we sit in the ecosystem is really between engineering and but before basically the ERP MRP, right?
Okay.
And we're agnostic, so we can work as being a web application, right? So we have API connections deployed with SAP, the Microsoft, etc. And really, we can work with any enterprise class type ERP MRP systems. So it's really kind of that flow right the upfront. And so
that's great.
Yeah, and so basically, we're capturing all that pricing data. Really, the upfront from either engineering or a mix of engineering or procurement. Loading basically building the product database, right? Probably you'd call it PDM. Your PDM balls or that along those lines.
Yeah.
So you're basically building your product database to go off and quote, and then you're blasting out those parts for quotations, and then we're capturing all the pricing, and the selection process as well. So that way, so if let's say that if there's an audit of the purchasing team, and they want to understand why Larry's Cables is always getting business versus Joey's Cables, right? You can actually go back and look and see, okay, here was quotations, here was any of the price adjustments that happened either through the on-platform e-auction capability, or just we have different ways systems can be used to drive cost reductions, right? The RFQ type things. So it kind of gives you all the history and decision makings to kind of support any kind of auditing.
Great.
And decision and supplier selections. So basically, and the other thing too is that within your configuration, being inherently web, right? You could we also license kind of on a per seat, so you could have your program manager, your engineers, purchasing, senior execs, anyone in the company has access. They basically kind of have it set up where you can have as much visibility as you want. You can do it the every access of every custom and commodity type item. You really configure it to what your company really wants to do.
Well, it's great having that level of visibility. It's like, that's the trend that I'm seeing out there with companies as well, that they want to see dashboards, they want visibility, they want people to self-serve instead of, the purchasing agent doesn't want to be bugged for, all this stuff all the time, and nor can he be bothered. It's you should be able to get this information if you can have access to it.
Well, let me ask this. So it just, as I mentioned, we have a big focus in Southeast Asia. So, and you kind of mentioned that, being in AWS, imagine that, and I've actually used Onshape while being in Singapore and Malaysia. I had no problem. So for our current and future customers in Southeast Asia, should be no problem in terms of lag time to use Onshape.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we're on the global AWS infrastructure.
Yeah.
We in Asia, we have 2 different data centers that we utilize depending on how close you are, either to Tokyo or to the southern servers, which I can't remember where they are right now. But it's like, there's servers in Australia. We're using West Coast US. There's servers in Ireland, right? The AWS has global reach and proper load balancing and everything that you would expect. And this is way over my head, all the detailed infrastructure stuff, but people are using it, all over Asia because that's where manufacturing is, right? So you have to. And our customers, we have customers that have design offices over there too, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, there's many articles you can look at on Onshape.com that talk about customers that we have in Asia doing work there. It works, and it works great.
So I think, maybe, if you want to kind of summarize, what's your message for potential customers in our network?
Yeah, it's all about finding the problems sooner. So that's number one thing. It's an accessible system, right? You can bring any device to the system. So you don't need the Windows CAD workstation anymore. You can run your Mac. I'm a photographer on the side, so I run Mac. That's just what I like, and I can use that. People who, so accessibility. Everybody is surrounded by computing devices. You should be able to access your information on a variety of devices and not a special CAD workstation. That's number one. Number two is that the ease of use of it, because it's cloud-based, and we're the newer kid on the block as far as CAD goes. We've had time to look back and think about new ways of doing things, to make assemblies be put back together quicker, to do things better in CAD, essentially. So that's another thing that we've done really well. And, because we have lots of customers seeing that now, we have tools that you can convert data very easily from one system to another. So know that that's a possibility. If you have a library of data, you can bring that in if you have most any modern format. And the third thing is really the data management aspect of things. Is the version control and who did what and when. Is, you see that from day one, from your first line sketched, you have PDM in Onshape. So in the biggest dirty secret about CAD and PDM in all the other CAD systems, I'm going to share it with you right now. It's a big dirty secret. Is the PDM systems that people spend all this money on and time and effort and years to install and run and maintain, people barely use them. They do their work on their hard drives. They're doing 6 months of work, and then they hit this check-in button, which copies the file to the server. And then if they want to do work again, they copy the file out, check in, check out. And that's what the PDM system's main job is to handle that transaction and put it in a database so you can see who did what and when, just at those times, though, when you hit that check-in button. So it's like people, the way Onshape works is just like every single action, because we're not sending files back and forth. We have a database. We can see who did what and when at any point in time, branch off, try out new things, and work in an agile fashion. This is all of the rage is agile hardware development now, just like software companies do agile, and Git flow and things like that. Onshape does that too for the hardware world. So you can create all these different modified branches and agile kind of techniques. We have all sorts of materials on it. But that's the third thing, is like the data management is automatic. You never have to do anything to set it up. You just, configure it and you have it. And you didn't have to I lost all my hair being a PDM administrator, essentially. I pulled it out. I was getting calls up all night from China, from India. How come my data's not replicating? It was just awful. And the moment I saw Onshape, I was like, that all goes away. It's just, so that's really what I'd love to tell people, is that it's a much more, you're focusing more on your design and sharing with your suppliers and working together instead of trying to maintain this weird tech stack that your IT department doesn't even want to look at. And that's true. I've in the hundreds of companies, the IT department does not want anything to do with the CAD stuff because it's not the standard kind of thing, right? So it's,
They want to go home at 5:00.
Well, yeah, they work hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's weird stuff. It's not like the normal Microsoft development stuff. It's kind of antiquated technology in some ways. Some of this check-in, check-out, and license management, FlexLM from the 70s, and all this stuff is just doesn't happen in Onshape. It's just like using Google Docs, except for CAD.
Digital transformation is everywhere. It's time to digitize your quote process, automate the repetitive tasks, and free up your team to focus on more value-add tasks. Don't let tariffs, travel, and lack of visibility in the global supply chain hold you back any longer.
And what we've done here is we've been able to configure the internal bill of material to easily talk to SCiMon. So basically imagine, you have the engineering team, they want to push this over into the SCiMon app to get their quote. So you would basically just do it as CSV export. This CSV file is straight from Onshape, the 3D modeling software. When you want to upload these parts into SCiMon, you do a CSV upload. Let me upload Excel. So that product from the Onshape, we just loaded the entire design. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say T's and C's. I'm going to pick certain things. I can actually include the URL from Onshape. So say I've got porting project files within the Onshape URL. So then we're going to go ahead and just do this. I'm going to actually select one vendor. I'm going to do this. Let's say 5 days. It's really that simple, right? So basically, it's, you have a huge project keep in mind, this has injection molded parts. This has electronics, things like that. So what's really nice is the system recognizes all those things. So let's see. Okay, so everything's been delivered. This is actually kind of an important one. When I look at it, what I can do is I click up here. This tells me what parts are in this. I'm going to just put on those, or this, electronics and the PCB. So very, very flexible. I thought that was important to show that. This is actually the supplier response in the platform. And now we have all the pricing. So we have up here, what's important is 2 suppliers, received quotation, 2 were delivered, 2 were seen, 2 participated. That's the status bar. We can look at, this is the quotation from supplier 1. Pricing from supplier 2. There's a side-by-side analysis. Here's a reference number, and this is giving you the comparison between supplier 1 and 2, showing pricing side by side. The green denoting that it was awarded, that it was accepted. So I think that's basically it. The whole thing from Onshape to SCiMon to the supplier, and then quotation back.
Contact us for a demo and discussion on how SCiMon.co can transform your supply chain today. SCiMon, supply chain simple.
We invite everybody to be watching this podcast to go to your link and find out the details in terms of cost. Like, would you share with us a little bit on how that is going to be like cost-wise for corporations, enterprises?
Oh yeah, it's very transparent. You go to onshape.com and you can find the pricing very easily. And we don't, you're not charging for any extra stuff. You pay for the subscription, and that's what you pay for. So it's, we have a small, medium, and large version. Essentially, standard for individual users, professional for like teams of people, and then enterprise is for your global companies who want the most analytics and data insights for the organization. And you're paying between $1,500 and $3,500 per user for CAD, US dollars, right? So it's right in the same range as what you'd pay for your subscription for other CAD systems, except you never had to buy the initial upfront thing with Onshape, right? It's a subscription day one instead of a capital investment and then subscription maintenance and things. So, and you're getting something for the subscription with Onshape too, because we're hosting everything, we're giving you all your data storage, space, and performance and things like that. So you just go to onshape.com and you'll find what you're looking for.
Fantastic.
Great.
All right. Michael, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm so excited for SCiMon here, and nice to meet you, Catherine. So nice to see you, Rob, and I'm really, let's talk again.
Sounds good, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. See you later.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.